Welcome back to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So today we are lacing up our shoes, metaphorically at least, and heading to high altitude.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling a phenomenon that, honestly, if you've watched the Olympics, the World Championships, any major
Oh,
marathon,
you've definitely seen it.
you are intimately familiar with it. I'm talking about the absolute, just crushing dominance of East African runners.
Specifically from Ethiopia, right?
Exactly.
And it really is one of the most sustained dynasties in, the history of sports.
It has to be.
You look at the podiums, Berlin, London, Boston, the Olympics.
Yep.
And the Ethiopian flag is almost always there. It's gotten to the point where, for the rest of the world, it feels like we're all just racing for second place.
Exactly. And the conversation around it is always so lazy.
Yeah.
You know, at a dinner party or something, people throw out the same three things.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
It must be the high altitude, or it's got to be genetics.
Or just that vague idea of natural talent.
Yes. Like it's some kind of magic. We just dismiss it, so we don't have to actually understand it.
Well, it's a coping mechanism, right? If we say it's magic blood or magic air,
Yeah.
then the rest of us don't have to learn anything from it.
You can just say, well, they're different and move on.
Right.
But today, we're unpacking a source that just says, hold on a second. Those biological explanations, they're missing the real story. We're digging into a book called Ethiopian Strides, The Collective Path to Marathon Mastery by Michael Crawley.
And the whole mission here is to look past the hardware, lungs and the legs,
Right, yeah.
and look at the software. And the software here is culture. It is a radical, almost survivalist form of cooperation that, well, it challenges everything we think we know about individual success.
So let's dive into Crawley's approach, because this isn't your typical sports science study.
Not at all.
Usually when we get research on running, it's some physiologist in a lab coat standing next to a treadmill measuring oxygen uptake.
Correct. That's the how. That approach just treats the body like a machine you can optimize.
But Crawley is an anthropologist. He wanted to understand the why.
And here's the kicker. He isn't just some academic observing from a distance with a clipboard.
No.
He is a phenomenal runner himself.
Yeah, let's establish his credentials because they really matter here. He's a Scottish and British international cross-country runner with a marathon time under 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Which is just insane. For context, most casual runners are thrilled to break 4 hours.
Right.
Breaking 3 is a lifetime achievement. Sub 2.20 puts you in elite territory.
And that physical ability allowed him to do something that most researchers, well, they just can't do. He didn't just interview Ethiopian runners, he lived with them. He spent 15 months there in towns like Entoto, Sandafa, and Akaki, and he actually trained with them.
And that is the absolute key. It's called participant observation. He wasn't watching them run.
No.
He was suffering alongside them.
Huh.
And that changes the data completely.
I have to imagine it does. If a researcher shows up with a notepad, people are probably going to give you the polite, polished version of the truth.
Of course.
But if you're, vomiting on the side of the trail with them after a 20-mile session, the walls come down.
Exactly. And Crawley writes about that initial tension. He was terrified the local runners would just see him as a running tourist.
Someone just passing through to take selfies at altitude and
buy the T-shirt to show off back home, yeah.
Which is a valid fear. I'm sure they see plenty of people looking for the secret sauce.
They do. But because Crawley could actually keep up, or at least, hang on for dear life during those brutal sessions,
right,
the dynamic changed. He says you can't understand this culture from an armchair. You have to feel the pace.
You have to share the suffering.
Once he shared in their suffering, they opened up to him. They realized he wasn't just there to extract data. He was sharing the experience.
And what he found once he was in it's pretty striking. I think the first big mental shift we need to make is about what running is to these athletes.
Right.
Because for you and me, running might be a hobby, a lifestyle choice to burn off a cheeseburger or clear our heads after work.
Right. In the West, it's often an act of self-care. It's leisure.
But for the runners Crawley lived with, it is absolutely not a hobby. He uses a specific word to describe it.
He calls it a bet.
A bet.
That is the fundamental difference.
Yeah.
For these young men and women, usually from, rural, impoverished backgrounds, running is a calculated risk. It's a way to alter their entire socioeconomic destiny.
It's an all-in investment.
Totally all in.
So let's unpack the cost of that investment, because when we say all in, we are not talking about buying expensive shoes or a gym membership.
No. We're talking about opportunity costs. To train at the level required to maybe, just maybe, make it as a pro, these runners effectively have to pause their lives. They stop their education. They don't take local jobs. They often postpone marriage or starting a family. They just move to these training towns, rent a tiny room, and do nothing but run and sleep.
That is just incredibly high stakes. If I take a year off to, find myself or whatever, and it doesn't work out,
Right.
I can usually go back to a corporate job. I have a safety net. If this bet fails for them, what's the fallback?
There isn't much of one. And that's the context we really need to grasp. The source material paints a pretty grim picture of the alternative.
I think I know what you're referring to.
There was one detail Crawley mentioned about the youth in the Addis region that just, it stopped me in my tracks.
It's about the prison system, right?
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. The source mentions that the social instability and poverty are so intense in certain areas that you have young people who will intentionally provoke conflicts.
Start fights, cause trouble.
Just to get arrested.
Just to get arrested. Why?
Because in prison, you are guaranteed food and a roof over your head. When that is the baseline reality, where prison is a viable survival strategy, it completely recontextualizes what we see on the starting line of a marathon.
It just strips away all the romance.
Completely.
When we see a runner gritting their teeth at mile 20, they aren't just fighting for a medal.
No.
They're fighting for a house for their parents. They're fighting to change the lineage of their entire family.
Exactly. It's an exit strategy. Success means you can build a future. Failure means you have lost years of your prime earning life with nothing to show for it.
So you've got this environment of extreme scarcity, a winner-takes-all economy where coming in first changes your life and coming in 50th gets you nothing.
Precisely.
Now, basic logic or, game theory would say this should create a completely cutthroat environment.
Right.
If I'm desperate to win and you're standing in my way, I should be hiding my secrets. I should be training in isolation to get an edge.
That's the Western assumption, isn't it? Competition breeds selfishness.
Right. But Crawley found the exact opposite. And this is the real aha moment of the deep dive.
It really is.
Yeah.
Despite the selfish need to win that prize money, the training method is entirely radically communal.
They've completely rejected the lone wolf mentality.
Completely. There's this one quote from the book that I think just sums it all up. One of the runners tells Crawley,
Go on.
"Running alone is just for health. If you want to change, you have to run with others."
That distinction is so important. Running for health versus running to change.
It's vital to change your physiology, your speed, your life condition. You cannot do it alone. The suffering required is just too great for one person to bear.
So how does this actually manifest in the training? Because we've all seen, run clubs in the park.
Sure.
They chat, they run a bit, they get coffee. I'm assuming this is a little different.
Very, very different. It's about this concept of the group as one body.
One body.
Yeah. Right. In the West, we tend to glorify natural talent. We think, oh, that person was just born to run.
Sure.
The Ethiopian perspective, according to Crawley, is much more skeptical of that, of innate talent.
Really? That's surprising, given how many champions they produce.
They believe the problem isn't finding a star. The problem is making a team. They see performance as something that's constructed through group discipline.
How so?
When they train, they run in these tight formations. I mean tight, it's almost claustrophobic. They follow the footsteps of the person in front of them with extreme precision.
So it's like a military drill or a flock of birds or something?
Yes. And the role of the pacemaker here is fascinating. In a Western race, a pacemaker is just a tool, right?
Right, a metronome, a guy looking at a watch.
Exactly, making sure they hit a certain split time. But in these training camps, the person leading the pack, they're a guide.
A guide, not just a pacer.
They're deciding the path. They're physically blocking the wind for the group, which saves huge amounts of energy. But more importantly, they are shouldering the mental load.
The mental load of what? Navigation?
Navigation, pace, effort management, everything. If you're third or fourth in line, you can effectively just turn your brain off. You surrender your agency to the group.
You just stare at the heels in front of you and flow.
That's it. And they rotate this role,
Yeah.
right? It's not always the same person at the front.
Shared leadership.
Exactly. Today I lead and I take the win for you. Tomorrow you suffer for me. They choose cooperation because they know that to reach the level of physical suffering required to be a world champion, you just can't push yourself that hard alone.
You need the group energy to pull you along.
It's a survival strategy applied to sport. I can't suffer this much on my own, but we can suffer this much together.
It raises the ceiling of what's even possible.
Exactly. There's a beautiful phrase in the book where they talk about the energy of the community being greater than the sum of the individuals. It's synergistic.
It reminds me of like slipstreaming in cycling. You hide behind the rider in front to save energy from the wind.
That's a great analogy.
This sounds like it's for the mind as well as the body.
It's mental slipstreaming. When your brain is screaming at you to stop because the pain is so high, the collective rhythm of the pack just overrides that impulse.
You keep moving because the group is still moving.
That's it.
Now, I want to talk about where this all happens, because the environment itself seems to play a huge role in this philosophy. The source talks about the terrain, the ups and downs.
Yes, and they mean that literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
The training grounds around Addis Ababa, like Entoto, they aren't flat, manicured tracks.
Yeah.
They're mountains. They're forests. The ground is uneven, it's rocky, it's steep.
Which sounds like a nightmare for injury prevention. I feel like most Western coaches would look at that and say, no way, too risky.
They absolutely would. We love our flat, predictable surfaces. But the Ethiopian runners, they embrace the ups and downs. They have this stoic acceptance that the terrain-like life is difficult.
You have to climb to descend.
It mirrors their whole life philosophy. To achieve the goal, the change, you have to endure the struggle of the hill.
But it's not just a grim grind, is it? Crawley mentions this element of adventure in their runs, which I found really charming.
This is one of my favorite parts of the book.
Right.
To keep this grueling regimen sustainable. I mean, they are running enormous weekly mileage.
Right.
They inject a sense of play and exploration.
Yeah.
They don't just run loops around a track. They zigzag.
They actually call it zigzagging.
Yes. They'll run through forests. They'll cut through different neighborhoods, explore new paths. It's about keeping the mind engaged.
So you're not just a hamster on a wheel.
Exactly. If you're just running in circles, you burn out emotionally. But if you're exploring, if the run has a narrative, it brings a bit of joy to the daily grind. It keeps them immersed.
It seems like that zigzagging also gives them a sense of ownership. You know, in a life where so much is out of your control, the economy, poverty running is the one thing they can master.
Absolutely. The source highlights that feeling of control explicitly. Through this intense discipline, the runners gain a sense that they are leading their own destiny. Even if the world around them is chaotic, for those 2 hours on the mountain, they are the captains of their own ship. They are physically moving themselves toward a better future.
That's powerful stuff. It just completely shifts the narrative from these guys are just genetically gifted to
These guys are working harder and smarter together than anyone else. And that is the key takeaway for me.
it's the combination of desperation and cooperation.
The desperation, the bet, provides the fuel. But the cooperation, the one body, provides the engine.
It makes you rethink that whole concept of the lonely marathoner. We have this image of the runner out there on the road just battling themselves. And sure, on race day, it's one person crossing the line when they're standing on that podium alone.
True. But the argument here is that the person crossing the finish line is a product of the group. That person never would have gotten to that line without the thousands of miles run in a pack, stepping in someone else's footprints.
There's a really poignant thought that summarizes this. It's a bit of a paradox.
Go on.
It says, the most personal record, the most collective cooperation.
It's beautiful because it's true. A marathon personal best of PB is the holy grail. It's your name on the certificate.
The definition of individual achievement.
Right. But in the Ethiopian context, that personal achievement is recognized as the result of a radical collective effort. You can't be a self-made man or woman in this system. You are a community-made champion.
It really challenges our Western individualism, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. We love the story of the self-made success, the guy in the garage who built the company, the lone genius.
And here, the greatest runners on earth are basically saying, I am nothing without the group.
And notice, they don't say this just to be humble in a press conference. They say it because it is practically, physically true. They know for a fact they would run slower alone.
It's a pragmatic reliance on others.
That's it.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, most of our listeners aren't trying to run a sub-2-hour marathon.
No, probably not.
But
I think the lesson transfers to almost anything difficult we try to do.
how so?
Well, think about how we approach our careers or our big life projects. We often sequester ourselves. We think, I need to focus, so I'm going to lock myself in a room and figure this out.
We treat struggle as a private matter.
Yeah, we don't want to show weakness. We don't want to
Yeah.
admit we're drafting off of someone else.
Right.
But the Ethiopian model suggests that the harder the task, the more you need to synchronize with others. If you are trying to do something that requires suffering, a startup, a PhD, a creative project, trying to hold the pace alone is just inefficient.
You need a pacemaker.
We need a pack. You need to draft off someone else's energy when yours runs low.
That's a great perspective. We think of asking for help as a crutch, but they see it as a turbocharger.
Exactly. It's not about making it easier so you can slack off. It's about making it possible to go harder.
I love that. It's not about making it easier. It's about making it possible to go harder. That is a bumper sticker right there.
I'll look into the merchandising rights.
Before we wrap up, I just want to circle back to Michael Crawley, the author, because I think his method is a lesson in itself. He didn't just extract information.
No. He gave sweat.
He did.
And I think that's why the book and the insights we're talking about feel so authentic. He honored the culture by participating in it fully. He respected the bet they were making by putting his own body on the line.
It really validates the idea that you can't truly understand someone until you've, well, walked or run a mile in their shoes.
Or in this case, about 3,000 miles at high altitude. You can't learn everything from a spreadsheet. Sometimes you just have to get in the mud.
So we've looked at the bet, the one body, and the zigzag. We've debunked the idea that it's all just genetics and altitude.
It's opportunity and community. Yeah. A potent mix.
As we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to chew on. We spend so much time in our culture glorifying the solo climb to the top. The CEO, the star athlete, the lone genius. But today, we learn that the world's greatest individual athletes, people who literally run alone for a living, cannot succeed without becoming one body with their peers. So here's the question for you. What solo burden are you carrying right now in your career, your family, your life that you've convinced yourself you have to carry alone?
And what would happen to your pace and your peace of mind if you stopped trying to be the lone wolf and found a pack to run with?
That's the question. Are you running for health or are you running to change? Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you on the next one.
Keep moving.